Okay, hi everyone. We're just going to give everyone a few seconds to join, and then we'll kick off. We've still just got a few people joining, so just going to give it one more minute and then we'll get started. Thanks for your patience. Okay, great. We'll get started now. Thanks for joining, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you're joining us from. So we're going to be taking a dive into how you can use Conga, Mission Control, and Breadwinner to really run a professional services operation right from proposal through to payment. So just to get started, we'll just do some quick introductions. So my name is Colin Johnson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Aprica Business Solutions. I'm based in Melbourne, Australia. And so I've been involved in the Salesforce ecosystem for around 16 years now. We've been running Aprica for 10 years. During that time, we've been a consulting partner. We've also been a product development partner, and we're also an ISV app exchange partner. So during our existence, we've executed about 500 Salesforce implementation projects. We've developed 5 app exchange solutions as well. Joining me today, I've got Vinayak from Conga. I'll just ask Vinayak to introduce himself.
Yep. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm Vinayak Dixit. I'm the Manager of Solution Engineering at APAC for Conga. So I've been with Conga for nearly 6.5 years and involved in the Salesforce ecosystem for nearly 10 years. As most of you might know, Conga is the #1 document generation app on the Salesforce platform, and we have a whole suite of CLM solutions that can help organize efficiency and help you with your needs. So yeah, glad to help Colin and Stoney as part of this session.
Yeah, good to have you. Thanks. And yeah, so making up the trio today, we've got Stoney, who's coming into us from New York. Stoney, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, yes, Stoney Grunow. I started my Salesforce journey in London 11 years ago with a small nonprofit focused consultancy. Our internal needs led to us developing Breadwinner, which I founded 7 years ago. And since then, I've had more conversations than I can count about how to connect Salesforce to accounting systems and finance systems, which is not as boring as it sounds. Sometimes it's interesting. And here we are.
Great, thanks for joining. Okay, so just a quick overview of what we're going to be covering off during the session today. So we're obviously going to be taking a high-level look at what is a professional services business, what are the key metrics that type of business is typically interested in, and then we'll run through a live demo showing you how we can use all three products together. If you do, and we'll finish up with a Q&A at the end. You can submit questions via the Zoom Q&A. You can also do it via our Mission Control Twitter handle there as well. Okay, so getting started, what is a professional services business and how big an industry is it? So the business research company conducted some research in May 2019 and found the professional services sector to be worth almost $6 trillion, and certainly on a strong growth trajectory to actually be heading towards 8 trillion within the next couple of years. So when we ask ourselves, where do we find professional services businesses? They're obviously all around us, Salesforce consultants, software implementers, marketing communication agencies, architecture companies, accounting, and so on. And ultimately, when we start to look at what they sell, obviously they're selling their knowledge, their skill set, ultimately adding value to their customer. But when it boils down to it, what they're selling is time. So what are the key metrics that a professional services business would be typically interested in? So these are really the 5 key KPIs that we feel encompass the majority of things that a professional services business would be concerned with. So drilling into each one of those in a bit more detail, obviously pipeline, main questions are, what have we sold to date? What have we got still coming down the pipeline that's going to help us with cash flow? Looking at capacity, obviously, what is our bandwidth? Can we take on more work? Do we need to bring in additional resources? Do we have anyone that's sitting on the bench or who has a bottleneck that we need to address? And what will new sales do to the actual resource requirements of the business? Again, we've obviously got a team of resources around us that's driving the revenue into the business, and how well are we utilizing those? So how many hours have we logged this week, this month, this year? What percentage of that is billable? So obviously that's our main focus. We want to drive that billable revenue into the business. And again, so what's the ratio between billable and non-billable? And overall, how are we actually utilizing the resources? So how are they performing against their overall weekly targets, but also how are they performing against their billable targets? And resource efficiency, obviously highly important. Are we actually delivering the work within the time frame that we've actually quoted to do it? So being able to identify who delivers well, who doesn't deliver so well, so we can identify, we're going to put our strongest team members onto this job, whether it allows us to actually earn better margin or actually go in more competitively. But also equally important, we're able to identify which resources might need some support and upskilling. And obviously, one of the key ones, profitability. So we're doing this work, but are we delivering it profitably? So can we compare what our scheduled effort was versus our actual effort? Can we actually recognize the revenue we've generated to this point of the project? And what have we invoiced to date, and what's been received payment wise? Okay, so now's the main part where we jump in and start taking a look at the actual system. So we've obviously just talked about resource efficiency and how important that is, but equally important is process efficiency. So we're going to walk you through a fairly streamlined process here where we're using Mission Control to scope out a project and establish the effort that's required and the revenue that we'll be generating as a result of that. Then we'll be using Conga to generate the proposal, sending it via Conga sign to get the customer to e-sign that proposal, and then using Mission Control to deliver the progress on that project. And then we'll flip into Breadwinner to, once the Mission Control invoice has been generated, we'll be integrating that straight through Breadwinner to Xero. Okay, so scenario is here. I'm implementing Salesforce for this customer here. So I've got a project outlining the project plan. You can see I've broken that up into various milestones. So I'm going to first of all architect the solution. Then we're going to go in and do some configuration, data migration, and so on. And then within each one of these milestones, we've built out the actions already. So this page lets me build out the entire scope of work. So all of the individual tasks that we need to get delivered, we're relating them to specific milestones. We're putting in how many billable or non-billable hours are required, when we're looking to get that work done, and then which resources are going to be doing that. So if we scroll down, we can see the full breakdown structure of everything that needs to be done, and then how much effort is going to be required. So based on all of that information that sits under the project, we start to get a summary sitting here. So we can see here that I've indicated this is a fixed price project. I can see the overall project budget. I've identified how I'm going to be calculating my revenue. So I'm using a standard billing rate for the revenue, and I'm using a role-based for my costs. So depending on the person that's doing the work, we might be paying them a different rate. So based on all of those actions, we've been able to build up a total summary of effort. So I'm also indicating here how I will be invoicing. There's various invoicing options in Mission Control. The one we're using in this example is milestone. So when we deliver a particular milestone on the project, we're going to be raising an invoice automatically. So we can see the summary of effort here. So we've got our summary. Obviously, this project hasn't started, so I can see I've got 297 hours of work that I expect to have to do. We haven't done anything yet, so everything's sitting in the remaining. But we're able to do a comparison between scheduled and completed as we go through that project. And then scrolling down, I've also got I've got a summary of the activity that we're going to be delivering to the customer. So that will get merged into the proposal as we do that. Jumping over to the Gantt chart here, so you can visualize the overall project timeline. So I'm able to reschedule as required. You can see that we've got dependencies created there. So anything, if one of these actions gets delayed, anything that's dependent on that is automatically going to reschedule by the same period of time. If we're wanting to look at our capacity of our resources, we're also able to use the scheduler in a few different ways. So this is an example where I'm looking at each individual person. I can see which actions have been assigned to them across this timeline. The alternative would be I'm just taking a higher level look at whether I've actually given them too much work to do. So quickly identifying bottlenecks where we need to address that. Okay, so back to our project here. I'm just going to hand over to Vinayak now, and he's going to talk you through how we're going to go about previewing that proposal, making sure it's okay, and then sending it to the customer for approval. Vinayak?
Yep, thanks, Colin. Yes, since now we have all that information that's sitting on that Salesforce, right? So it's there ready to go to the customer. So as you're aware, like documents are key in any digital transformation. So what we're going to do now is extract all that information and put in a nice, meaningful document, like a pixel perfect document that can be sent out to the customer. So what we're doing here now is generating a proposal which grabs all that information from the project as well as milestones that Colin went through, putting in a structured document so that can be sent to a customer. So that gives you more branded message as well as helps you with your accuracy and consistency. So if you're reading the proposal, as you can see, it has a more sort of a meaningful branded messaging in there with your company logo, as well as all the solution proposal that Colin put together. So this document now is ready to go to be sent out to the customer. What we can also do in this document is include rich text fields, tables, and smarts in there. So as you can see under the solution fees section, we brought all those project phases, all those information sitting there that's ready to go, right? So now as we've gone through this whole process of generating this meaningful document, the next step in the process is once we're happy with it, we're now going to automate this whole solution by generating this proposal and sending for e-signature. Right. So what we're doing here is we're integrating Composer, which is a document generation, with Conga Sign, which is a purposely built e-signature tool on the platform. So this gives a seamless integration and helps you take away all those inaccurate messaging as well as organization inefficiency and bring this in the platform. So now I'm going to switch my hats, and now the document is gone, and I'm going to play the role of Jane Foster, who's received the document. As you can see, it comes in a branded email. That's where you can then go ahead and read to the email, click on the document as we're going through. You agree for terms and conditions, and then you see that proposal come through. At this point of time, I'm happy to review the proposal. And then I go through all these documents. If I have some information that I need to add in, I have that ability, we call that as a write back, to push the information back to Salesforce. So I'm happy with this proposal. I'm going to go ahead and sign that. So once I complete the signing, as the owner of that proposal, I get notifications and the document comes back to Salesforce. So your source of truth now sits in the Salesforce. So that helps you complete that whole cycle from proposal to sign, where you've taken a document, convert it into a pixel perfect document, send it for signature. What it also does with the signing, we have audit trails that help you audit and track the transactions, who's completed when, and there's nice dashboards that can you leverage to see at what phase of the project or the signing process you are in. Back to you, Colin.
All right, great. Thanks, Vinayak. Okay, so now we've obviously, we've got our project all scoped out. It's been presented to the customer. They've signed it. So now we're ready to actually start delivering the work. So there's a number of ways of doing that. So as an example, as an individual resource, I could be logging time on my timesheet. So this loads up for an individual resource, and it loads everything that's been assigned for that person to work on. And then you can see they've already logged some time this week. So what we're going to do here is just say that we've actually just completed that workshop. So we're just going to double click in there and enter notes. So as well as that, we're going to also say that we've also done this future state solution architecture. So we can put in all of the hours there, scroll down, click on save, and that will save that time for us. An alternative way of logging time is via the whiteboard. So I'm looking at the whiteboard for our individual project here. You can see I've already got a couple of actions that have been marked as complete. So over here, I'm now working on my getting the client to review and approve this document. So what I can do is actually click onto the clock icon here and enter notes here. So logging that time goes away, creates the time entry, and it will automatically move the action into in progress for me. Okay, so scenario in this project is we're actually going to be raising an invoice to the client once we've completed everything within the solution architecture milestone. So we've already got a couple of actions completed here. So now what we're going to do is actually just drag this one over, drop that in to the completed column. And as a result of all of the actions within that milestone being completed, the milestone gets marked as completed and automatically generates an invoice. So on the billing tab of this project, I can see that I've got my invoice created here. So if I just expand that, you'll see it's for the one line item for the completion of the solution architecture milestone. So if I drill into that, what we call a billing event, so you can see it's obviously relating to this project. It's identified who we're actually invoicing. Now, what you do have the ability to do within Mission Control is actually generate a PDF that you could send to the customer. So I'll just illustrate that first of all. Okay, so obviously your company details, your logo, the customer that you're invoicing, and then the details of what they've what they've got to pay. So now that that's actually been generated, if we just drop back onto that, there is a shareable link that you can then email to the customer so they can access, preview, and download that. But what we're going to do in this example is actually, we're going to hand over to Stony now, and we're just going to talk through how you can take the Mission Control billing event and pass that seamlessly through to Xero.
That's right. Hi, everyone. It's important to remember that whatever accounting system you have, it is an accounting system. It's not a billing system. Your accounting system won't really be able to figure out who did what, when, has it been billed, all that complexity. And that's why you need something like, as Colin has, a billing event and a billing line item. But at a certain point, you're going to need to get this into your accounting system. And that's where Breadwinner can help. We have native integrations with Xero, QuickBooks Online, and Netsuite. And all you have to do is just click, as Colin is about to, new invoice. This sets up our guided wizard. We don't want whoever's doing this to have to think too much or have to be trained. They should almost be on autopilot. So the first things that we say is, hey, should we use your existing Xero contact? It's already associated with this customer. Yes, let's do that. And then we say, okay, these are the line items we had from Colin's billing event. Is this what you want to go into Xero? And invariably, the person will say, yep, let's create this approved invoice in Xero. And as Colin clicks this, we are first creating that invoice in Xero using the API, and only upon a successful confirmation, we then copy that information back to Salesforce. So everyone can see this invoice has been generated in Xero. It is there. It's ready to go. Colin? So this is Colin's accounting system. He's using Xero. And as you can see, that invoice, I believe it's the top one, yep, 1044, has been generated. And there's the amount. It's all ready to go, but it hasn't been paid. So, you know, a week goes by and your bookkeeper is checking the bank, and lo and behold, there's a transfer in for this amount. They reconcile this in Xero. They don't need access to Salesforce. They don't need access to Mission Control. They're living in Xero. They just want to make sure, oh, great, a payment came in. Let's make sure it's applied to the right invoice. By applying that to the invoice in Salesforce, when you go back to Breadwinner, you can see that invoice's status paid. There's a payment. Great, everything's done. And because Breadwinner works tightly with Mission Control, the existence of this payment from Xero into Salesforce, into Breadwinner, also triggers the creation of Mission Control's payment record. So great, now Mission Control knows, without anybody having to lift a finger, that the invoice has been fully paid and all that data flows in. And this is what I really love, is Colin's ability to show how your finances are evolving on a per project level. Colin?
Yep, great. Thanks, Stoney. Yes, obviously we just ran through there, generated a billing event inside Mission Control. We used Breadwinner to take that and send it to Xero. Obviously our accountant has recorded the payment back in. That comes seamlessly back through Breadwinner into Mission Control and creates a billing payment relating to the billing event. And then back on the billing tab of the project, we get a summary of what's going on. So we can see the overall budget. We can see what's already been invoiced, what's still what's still left to be invoiced, and of the amount that has been invoiced, what has been paid and what might be outstanding. So really taking us from that initial proposal right through to the receipt of payment. So with that said, obviously thank you for your time, and what we'll do is just open up to any questions that people might have. So we've got an initial question here from Abel. How does the process flow go if customer does not accept the proposal quotation? Vinayak, are you able to answer that one?
Yeah, sure, I can do that. So depending on the proposal, if the customer doesn't accept that, so that information can go back to the system, and then we can renegotiate the proposal, regenerate that document and send back. So we can put some process flows in there on automation that allows you to negotiate during the generation of the proposal, giving the customer an ability to negotiate or ask questions before finalizing the proposal. So what we showed in this process was a whole streamline, assuming that proposal has been accepted, but we can have processes in place where we help you negotiate those documents, and then once you agree, then we can send the final proposal out. So that's where Conga's one suite of products comes into play that helps you with that negotiation ability within the platform.
Okay, great, thanks. So got another question here. So are the resources only Salesforce users, or can they be set up as contacts? So yeah, within Mission Control, we've got some flexibility around what constitutes a resource. So we call them roles, and the role can link to a Salesforce user. Alternatively, it can link to a Salesforce contact. And another option is you can actually create what we call an asset. So think of this as a placeholder. So this might be a machine, a vehicle that needs to go out with the team, or simply a placeholder. So you don't necessarily know which consultant you need to do that work, but you know you need a senior dev or a junior admin. So you can create those individual assets and then use those as placeholders. Another question here, can you include the project Gantt as part of the Conga document? Not out of the box. Sorry, Vinayak, what,
Colin,
just,
sorry, Colin, I'll answer that question if you don't mind.
Okay.
So with the Gantt chart, we can grab that image of the Gantt chart and include that as part of the document, right? So if that image is stored anywhere in Salesforce, the URL or publicly accessible, we can grab that image and put that into the document and then send that out.
So just to clarify that, so the Gantt chart isn't an image, it's obviously a component of the page. So what you would need to do is you would need to actually take either a PDF or a screenshot of the Gantt chart and store that as a file related to the project. And then, as Vinayak says, you can actually pull that in and merge it into the Conga document. Another question over here about expenses. So can you add in expenses, including the tax invoices for each expense when you are claiming for expenses relating to the project? So the first part of the question, yes. So my example that we've run through on this demo today, we've actually we've had it was a fixed price project, and we were delivering it on a milestone basis. But you can support time and materials invoices as well. So your invoice can be created automatically again, and it will automatically add in line items for any time logs and any expenses that have been approved but not yet invoiced. The second part, can you actually, I think the question when you're saying include the tax invoices for each expense, if you're talking about like the receipts of the actual expenses incurred. So again, not using the native Mission Control invoice template, but what you could do is actually use Conga Composer to generate a custom invoice template that would again pull in all of the billing events, but also pull in any like attachments that are relating to receipts that have been incurred. Okay, in the graphic that shows the project budget invoiced and paid, is it possible to add a fourth graphical element for hours worked, but not yet invoiced? That's a great feature request. I can see that's coming in from one of our customers, so I'll certainly make a note of that and get that added onto our backlog. Thanks for the suggestion. Can you save the approved invoice file to a document management system rather than back into Salesforce? Again, yes. I mean, so it is. It's created as a Salesforce file, but equally, you could then save that to wherever you need it to be. The other thing to note there, from Breadwinner's perspective, you also have access to the Xero invoice as well as the Mission Control version, if required, directly from the Breadwinner object. Okay, I think that might be all the questions. Really appreciate your participation there, everyone. So just the final thing to say, obviously, is thanks for your time. And if you do have any questions on any aspect of what you've seen here today, you can get in touch with either myself, Vinayak, or Stony, and our contact details are there. So I'd like to thank you for your time, and hope you have a good rest of your day.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.